decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot! Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant turning, has to put it up for the buzzer. He banks it!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. We are right here on DSM Media, the platform. Make sure if you're not already following DSM Media, follow them at DSM_media on Twitter. And you can also find us on Instagram at DSM.DoSomethingMajor. And you can find us on TikTok as well, as we are bringing content daily there as well now. And that's at DSM Media. So just DSM Media straight up on Twitter. Make sure you're following us on all platforms. Today, I am accompanied by a very special guest. I'm sure you all have seen him before, but if you have not, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Parcero Philly. My man, Parcero, how are you doing today, my guy?
What's up, baby? What's going on, man? We're back. We back talking NBA. Let's get it. It's been a while, man. I'm excited.
Yes, and it's funny you mentioned we're back talking NBA because, you know, we kind of gotta change the path here a little bit. Obviously, we were doing NBA content regardless, but with the Eagles season, you know, settling down here, we definitely will pick it up a notch as far as covering the Sixers and the whole NBA as a whole. So.
We need something to kind of keep our minds occupied.
We got to keep our minds off the negative. We got Phil checking in here. When is it too late?
Phil.
We got some questions. So we got some questions already. I'm looking forward to answering that in a little while here. Adam checking in. What's up, guys? Great show. Thank you for tuning in, Adam. And, of course, my man, Jason Voorhees. What's up, Jason?
What's up, Jason?
We got to get you on here sometime, my man. I want to talk some hoops with you. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. But, yeah, we got a lot to get into. So I'm going to dive right into it. Before I do so, make sure if you're not already following me, you can find me at Scotty Drown, your host right here. But as far as what we're going to get into here today, we're obviously going to recap the 76ers and the Wizards yesterday, MLK Day, you know, a matinee matchup. And it didn't look like the Sixers were awake yet, but we'll get into that. We'll get some midseason thoughts on the Sixers. We are just right about that way of the midway mark of the 82-game season this year. So we'll get thoughts on the Sixers as a whole overall this season. I definitely want to talk about all these rumors regarding Ben Simmons. I mean, there's too many to name, so I'm not going to sit here and name them right now. We'll get into that during the segment. And then, of course, the James Harden rumor that, came to surface today. And then I want to spend some time talking about the Grizzlies, which my man Parcero was very high on to start the season. I don't believe I even had them in my top 8 in the West, which shame on me because this is a young rising team, but definitely want to talk about Ja and the Grizz right there for a little bit. And then we'll just take a quick trip around the NBA to finish us off there. But we do have to get to the negative first, which is this. What is this? A 19-point loss to the Washington Wizards on MLK Day, 2 p.m., middle of the afternoon. I had to, get off work and watch this miserable stuff the day after the Eagles get kicked out of the playoffs. Parcero, initial thoughts from this game, what you saw, any takeaways, any major takeaways, I guess I could ask.
I mean, for me, it was great to kind of just enjoy it. Like, I literally just sat on the couch, had a beer in hand, just relaxed and watched the game. I really don't get to do that throughout too often. So I was excited watching some afternoon basketball, especially after the Eagles lost, right? You just get to relax and we get to get right into the Sixers season. But look, Joel Embiid is a freaking beast. And this we all do know. The main frustration for me, again, is Tobias Harris. You and I have talked about this off air countless of times. Yes. I defended Tobias to no end. I love the dude. It is so hard defending Tobias Harris. And like yesterday, it's like you need someone to step. Like I felt like Tyrese Maxey stepped up. I mean, when it comes to Furky and Seth, when we're talking about shooters, like specific shooters, like night in, night out, you might not get the best out of them because that's what happens when you're just a shooter. You live by the three, you die by the three.
Right.
Bias, you want more. You expect more from him. It's in there. That's the problem. This is why, like, I get so wound up when I see like Sixers fans like, oh, I could get rid of him. He's trash. He doesn't even belong in the NBA. It's like,
no,
this dude was literally a borderline all-star last year, and there was so many times last year where I felt like, all right, here we go, Tobias.
Yeah,
but it's just super frustrating to me. That's really the game I'm gonna. That's the one thing I'll take away. I felt like the defense overall from the Sixers has gotten better, but when you face off against teams that can shoot at the clip that the Wizards do, that the Hornets do, it is still a bit of a concern. The perimeter defense, as much as it's improved, you got a bunch of shooters on both those teams, and we obviously struggled, and we obviously lost both those games. So, guys, you do need to step up. And what are we going to do when we have to face off against teams that can space the court like both these teams have?
Yeah, and just I guess what I want to start with is the Tobias thing, because I'm with you. What I have written down on my sheet here of notes initially is just WTF. I have Seth and Tobias. Now, obviously, Seth is not as serious of a case. He's not been that inconsistent this year. He's actually been really good this year. Tobias, the inconsistencies continue because we have a great outing against Miami on Saturday. Even against the Celtics, I can't remember his stat line, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't anything bad to the point where people were talking about him, right? So by Saturday, you get to the Miami Heat game where he kind of kept them afloat in the first half of that game and, ended up having one of the better games of this season for himself. So then you come out against the Wizards and you lay an egg, and it looks like almost like an effort thing, man. I'm not going to lie to you, because it's the one rebound and the one assist. Like, what are you doing out on the floor for 25 minutes where you're getting 6 fouls, you're fouling out of the game, you're shooting 3 for 11, but then just one rebound? When on a team that needs help rebounding, this is a team that has struggled rebounding. They got out rebounded in that game.
Yeah.
And Tobias grabs one board. If you're having an off night shooting, that's fine. And that's one thing I've seen this season from Tobias, is that when he's having those off nights, he will start hitting the boards a lot more. He'll start getting involved in other ways. And in this game, you just didn't see it. He was just a complete non-factor. And it's just, it's so frustrating, because you do have the other side that is the fans that there's fans that believe that Tobias is just a scrub. They think that he does not belong in the NBA to an extent. There's a group of people that feel that way. And I know it's because of the inflated contract that kind of, it skews the way you're able to evaluate his game and what he does on the court. So when they don't see him being able to do the same things as Embiid, but yet making more money than Embiid, it's frustrating. I get it. I get that. But that also is not Tobias's fault. He just took the contract that was offered. As far as him, the frustrating part for us, and I feel that I can speak for you, as based on what you just said, we know what he can do. We know what he can bring each night. And we know that he is that 18 point per game guy.
Exactly.
And that is all that we need. It's not that we want him to do more than what he averages. We don't need, I at the beginning of the season, I think I may have asked you, what are the odds that he could increase to a 21 or a 23 point per game, scorer. Obviously that's not in his game. That's just not who he is. He doesn't take that many shots. He doesn't get that type of workload for that amount of points, but he is that 18 to 20 guy. And that's all we're asking for this season. And I think that's where the problem is, where is his performance, his value is getting misconstrued versus the minimal expectations that we're really asking of him.
And Brian Jacobs, and I saw you commented this tweet as well. I thought he put it perfectly. He, pretty much tweeting today, really wish people could stop calling Tobias Harris a bad basketball player. He's extremely talented, but unfortunately doesn't fit the team scheme and Morey's prototypical roster build / game plan. Slandering this dude is lazy, but I don't expect much from Twitter. I thought he put that perfectly.
Yeah.
And this is what I've said too, Scotty. So when it comes to Tobias, obviously, I think people expect him to be a number 2 scorer because of the contract. That's not
Right.
his fault. That's on Alton Brand for giving him that contract and panicking that season,
Exactly.
that all season. But here's what I got to ask myself, and this is what I always ask Sixers fans as well. Let's say the number 2 option was a viable option who can score and can hold their zone behind Joel Embiid. Can Tobias Harris be Chris Middleton? That to me is the ceiling. Can Tobias Harris perform like Chris Middleton did? Because I thought, to me, Chris was always a 3 option.
Yeah.
And you saw when you had Drew locking down guards, creating for others and scoring on his own as well. And then Giannis is balling out of his freaking mind. Chris stepped up in a way that they needed him to. Can Tobias do that? I personally think Tobias can do that. I know it's hard to kind of think of that right now. But the problem is right now is we have, and people are forgetting about this because obviously they're watching what's on the court, but we have a guy who makes a lot of money, who was our point guard, who's sitting out right now. And although he was a detriment on the offensive side, obviously when you're playing 4-on-5 basketball, it can be really tough.
Yeah.
But he did create a lot for other people, especially for Tobias Harris. I don't know if that's the issue why he's struggling so much. I personally think it's a lot of mental. I don't know what's going on off the court. I feel like a lot of times he's in his head. I mean, you saw against the Rockets, he's telling fans to stop effing clapping. So I do think a lot of his mental. Is he hearing the trade rumors? Like, is that affecting him as well?
Maybe.
We do not know. But this, to me, is just not Tobias Harris. I know we're missing something right now, especially in that backcourt. But this, to me, is not Tobias Harris.
100%. I think you pointing out to the Brian Jacobs tweet, which I thought was the best that we could possibly say it. I just could not articulate it that well, honestly. I thought that was perfect. And what you just said is perfect. I 100% agree. And it's something that it's almost like beating a dead horse at this point that I'm trying to bring it up. And it's like nobody will listen. You even have it to the point where some fans are like, I'd rather have Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris on the court right now. You'd rather have the guy that quit on the team? That doesn't make sense to me. And so when I think about Tobias Harris, first of all, if he does seem to be in his head. Like, first of all, stop reading what's on Twitter. Stop, responding to the crowd's booing.
Do not listen to us.
Yeah, stop listening to us, period. It's not for you to listen to it. We're talking to the fans here. We're not trying to tell you how to play, Tobias. So, he needs to get off of social media, out of that environment, right? That negative environment, and just play his game. But if I read that online, that somebody would rather have a guy to quit on me and my team over me, then I would kind of feel some type of way about that. But hopefully he's not reading into that. But it's a huge point, and I do think it has an effect on him because just like Danny Green, right? Danny Green's not playing the way that he played last year for us because he's not getting open looks. I mean, even Seth is having to take more shots. Now, obviously, Seth is he's still playing up to par from last season, maybe even better. But he's having to get a lot of his own shots where you can see that weigh in on him in games like yesterday, where Seth, in that game, it's like, damn, Seth, what's going on? They played 3 games in 4 days, and he's used to being a role player that doesn't have to find his own shot every game. So now you're asking him to do that every single game, run a pick and roll with Joel Embiid, be the guy dishing it down in the paint, making assists, facilitating the offense. He's tired yesterday. He's out of it. He could not put the effort in, and you saw it. He didn't insert himself offensively. He didn't try to get his own shot. He kind of just played in the flow of the offense and kind of just hid in a sense. So it's affecting everyone. It's making Joel Embiid's job harder. He has to play harder on defense. He has to bring the ball up the court now. It affects so much, and I just don't see how Sixers fans can't simply see that, when we're the ones that have been defending Ben Simmons forever now. We know what Ben Simmons does good, right? We know what he's bad at. We know what he does good. And it's clearly affecting the team, and I think we just need to take a deep breath, right? And recognize that because the biggest point that you mentioned there is that Tobias is number 3. And he was never meant to be the number 2. Maybe the number 2 scorer, but he was never meant to be the number 2 player on this team. It was always supposed to be Ben Simmons. That responsibility was always supposed to be his. And I think it's going down the line now. But it's rough, and it kind of leads me into before I want to move to the midseason thoughts on the Sixers, I actually wanted to get your thoughts on the Wizards because they are on the opposite end of this. As you mentioned, them and the Hornets, they seem to run a similar philosophy on the Sixers, right? It really looked they were two mirroring games. It felt like almost. But I really want your thoughts on the Wizards, where they fit into the East. They've been kind of missing Bradley Beal pieces, Rui Hachimura all season, so they're finally getting into full strength now. And I'm wondering what your thought is after watching that game yesterday, because they got a lot of weird pieces there.
Well, thank you, Washington, for killing any opportunity we had at Bradley Beal. No, but in all seriousness, I really felt like obviously they won the Russell Westbrook trade to get back Caldwell Pope and Kuzma and Harrell for a player that really did not fit with Bradley Beal. You know, it's so weird. Like Russell Westbrook has such a tough time fitting in with all these teams, but I digress. These guys now have depth, and Bradley is able to play his game. And they got a lot of guys here now who can shoot at a high clip and high efficiency, and that's kind of what you're seeing right now with this team. They're able to kind of space out the court, and obviously Bradley Beal has been you know, he's been thriving under this type of new system here with the Washington Wizards, and it's a scary team, definitely. Especially this isn't just a team that's like a team that is just playing above their weight. They have a star player, and they have a team around him now, finally. And it'll be interesting to see going forward here with the Washington Wizards, but they're definitely going to be in the playoff picture. I do believe it. We still have 10 teams, right? They haven't changed that.
The play-in tournament.
So they're definitely going to be in there. And I mean, when you got a Bradley Beal, you always going to have that chance. But I think this team's depth is really what is the difference from this year to last year.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. It's 100% the depth, because you look at their team that we played in the playoffs last year. I mean, this is a completely different team. They've really, recouped a lot of talent on this roster and, added to it as well. Like yesterday, we didn't even see Davis Bertans, right? Like I'm not sure if he's injured or what's going on there. We didn't see him. It didn't have an effect in that game. Even looking at that game, it was so spread out on the Wizards side. Bradley Beal only had 13 points yesterday, and they beat us by 19 points. So they obviously have ammunition in the clip that is not Bradley Beal as well. So to your point, I think I wouldn't call them a scary team. Like, obviously, if we get to the playoffs and that's an option to play, I would rather play the Wizards, than a lot of other teams.
I don't think it'll be in 5, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, it isn't going to be in 5. It's not going to be like last season. They'll give us a little bit of a challenge there. But I do think Embiid would shine through overall.
Yeah. And the thing is that when you're going up against these teams, like, you got to make your shots. And of course, we didn't make our shots yesterday. We didn't make our shots last Thursday against the Hornets. And that's really what's killing you.
Yeah, 100%. You look at even if you're just looking at box scores, you can see what happened. I mean, only Maxey and Embiid, they were the only ones in double figures yesterday, which is just completely unacceptable.
What's the cat's name on the Wizards? Gafford, the center?
Yeah.
Joel, that's literally his son.
It is his son. They had to go away from him yesterday.
Yeah, every time he phase off, Joel goes up against Gafford. Like already knows, he's like, I'm gonna get fouled. I'm gonna foul him a couple times, and they were just getting so frustrated. But that's the beauty of Joel, man. The way he moves, it's wild.
And that's that's a great point you brought up there, because I do think the Wizards came into that game with a little bit extra on their play. Like they had a lot of extra energy. There was a lot of like taunting in the game, back and forth. I mean, Drummond and Thomas Bryant. Like Thomas Bryant at one point like threw up like gang signs at Andre Drummond. Like I didn't know what the hell was going on, bro. He was like mocking Andre Drummond's like celebration. It was very odd. Like, because after one dunk, he comes down and he goes like this, like down the court. And then the next one he bumps into him and he's throwing up like these weird hand signals. I'm just like, what the hell is going on? And then obviously Trez like yells after everything that he does. Like, gets a rebound, like in somebody's face. Like it was just wild. But then Kyle Kuzma, dunking on Embiid, bro. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, like I mean, first off, he was lucky. Tobias is just like is like with his feet stuck to the court, and then Joel just picks up the assignment and like, okay. You just found Joel on a misassignment there, and you're gonna flex on that. But that's Kyle Kuzma.
I forgot about that, man, until we just brought it up.
Because of Kyle Kuzma. He's been doing this since the Lakers days, man.
Weird shit. You know what I mean? He's just such an odd player. He obviously dresses very odd, but he's got a very unorthodox style of play. But that was another good point that you brought up there. He wiped Tobias under the rug yesterday. I think that's something that we can also notate there. 15 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists. And the thing about Kuzma is that he was just all over the court yesterday. He was very energetic, which the Sixers were totally lacking yesterday. But definitely want to move towards the midseason thoughts. And just your thoughts on the Sixers as a whole this season. What is your overall scope? Like, have your thoughts on the Sixers changed since we did that preseason, initial show where I think we both had them around like the 4th or 5th seed in the East, which they're at the 5th seed right now, I believe. Or no, they're at the 6th seed right behind Milwaukee, actually. So they did drop down a little bit. Have your thoughts changed on this team? Do you think they're a contender? Like, where are you at with the Sixers right now?
It's definitely tough. For me, I think I had them 3rd in the East going into the season. Look, first half, I think my stance on this team is a little different from what most fans have. I really was impressed with like the mental toughness of this team. Look, in sports in general, and I mean, especially Philly sports, we've dealt with this, but COVID is a real thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a real factor within all of our sports, but especially with the Sixers. We've had guys coming in and out of lineups, and yet this team is still above 500.
Yeah.
You've also had to deal with the drama of Ben Simmons. So look, I give these guys a lot of kudos. Doc Rivers, we pick and choose our battles with him, man. He can be frustrating at times, but other times you're like, all right, that's the guy who won the finals back in 2008. But to keep these guys together, keep believing in the system without everything that's been going on, truly remarkable. To see a guy like Tyrese Maxey kind of step up into the role he's had has really been like the bright spot. And of course, I honestly think Joel Embiid has taken his game to a whole nother level. I'm sure you saw
Unbelievable to say.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw the Drew Hanlon tweet comparing him to Michael and Kobe. But that's true. Like, you got a 7'2", 7'3" guy who literally can move like a guard and can dominate in the paint like a center. It's something we have never seen. I always get into this with obviously on TikTok, especially with the Jokic people. Look, I'm a biased Sixers fan. What do you expect from me? I love my Sixers.
Exactly.
I bleed the red and blue. I'm going to defend Joel Embiid. And this year, my argument is definitely valid when you watch the way he's playing. The man is bringing up the ball as a point guard. Are you freaking kidding me right now? So, look, when I'm looking at it as a whole scope, it's a waiting game right now, Scotty.
Yeah.
For right now, they're going through their bumps and bruises. I do think everything that they've gone through is going to help them later on down the line. But again, we're going to ask the question, can this team get past the second round? That's been their kryptonite. Can they get there? I do like that they've been tested, but here's my issue. And this is where I'm just like, I just don't think so, because the second scorer right now has been Tyrese Maxey. I know you love Tyrese, and I love Tyrese. The way he's been performing is amazing. But to expect a young 21-year-old point guard to be that second guy is a lot to ask for. Can he do it? Yeah, of course he can do it. He's shown he's done it throughout the season. But in the high pressure situations of the playoffs, in the best of 7 series, that is a lot to ask for from a youngster like that. And will we have enough spacing around the court for Joel Embiid? Will Tobias Harris take that? And we talked about it. Can he be Chris Middleton? And these are all some serious question marks that it's a little far stretched for us. So for right now, it's a waiting game. But I do think the Sixers team right now can get to the second round. Can they get past that? That's the question, man.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you now, barring the way this seeding works out, because like right now, and obviously we're about midway through the season, so you take it with a grain of salt. But they're the 6th seed; they would play Brooklyn in the first round right now. So yeah, you don't want to do that, but just as far as getting in, maybe in those top 5 seeds, but even Milwaukee's down to the 5th seed right now. But I mean, that's all beside the point. We still got a ton of games to go through, but I'm with you. I'm kind of just in between. Like, I'm proud of them for one, like for the reasons that you stated, like going through all the drama, the turmoil, like to be midway through the season. You've played games without Joel Embiid. You played games without Tobias Harris. You went through stretches without Tyrese Maxey, without Matisse Thybulle, without Danny Green, without Seth Curry. Down the line, COVID has ran its course through this team. Injuries are now coming into play now with Matisse, Shake. Danny Green has the hamstring. And I just want to say, because I heard I don't think it was yesterday's broadcast, but it might have been Saturday's, that Shake is not even able to walk right now because of his lower back injury. So
it was a nasty injury, man.
I just want to, it was pretty worrisome, along with Matisse's as well on Friday night. So sending my prayers out to Shake. Obviously, rest up, get better, man. I know we criticize all these guys every day, on these shows and everything when we're talking about them, but definitely want the best for their health at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So prayers out to Shake, prayers out to Matisse. Definitely heal up soon and get back on the court. But that was definitely worrisome when I heard that about Shake, that he couldn't even walk. So take your time. I know the Sixers they need bodies right now. Take your time, Shake. Definitely get healed up there. But yeah, it's hard to be. So I'm proud of them. It's hard to be confident in them, right? Say oh, if they do match up with Washington in the first round, that's a tough matchup for them right now. They do match up with Charlotte in the first round. That's a really tough matchup right now. I know we talk about Matisse all the time. If you're not getting a wing player in return, I know I said I would trade Matisse for Jaylen Brown. The only reason that I would do that in that deal is because you get Jaylen Brown back in return.
Yeah.
So I'm not including Matisse for a deal for a point guard. I'm not doing that. I'm only doing that for a solid wing, like a Jaylen Brown, like a Brandon Ingram. Maybe I probably would. You don't need to include him for Brandon Ingram, but just hypothetically speaking, you need your wing defenders, right? We're using Charlie Brown right now because we're so spent out on wing defenders with Danny Green, Matisse out, Shake out. We have no lengthy guards out there right now. And, I think all of this factors in down the line is kind of what I'm getting at. And like you said with Tyrese Maxey, it's maybe we do put him in that spot and he just blossoms, right? Maybe that happens. But on the other side of that is if he doesn't, if he fails, and then he has to deal with the repercussions of having that responsibility and that pressure from Philadelphia, does that affect his, he's a tough ass kid. He's a great kid. He seems to have all the work ethic in the world. I don't honestly believe that we could really affect his confidence because he seems like such a happy-go-lucky dude. But do you even want to go down that road of putting that pressure on him right now at 21 years old, on a team that is deficient right now? We may have no choice, right? But, just putting him in that position, and I don't know that that's good for his development either. So it's a rough spot. They have 6 of their last 7 home games, or 6 of their last 7 games at home in January, which is great. They're only 2.5 games back from the number 1 seed in the East, which is great. And just to put the whole Eastern Conference in perspective, down to the 11th seed, the New York Knicks, who are 22-22 right now, they are only 6 games back from the number 1 seed. So shows you really how close the Eastern Conference is jumbled up right now. Atlanta's at the 12 seed right now. Just throwing that in there, who we lost to in the second round is a 12 seed right now, and they're 18-25. Yeah, that's pretty crazy because I thought the Hawks would take a leap this year, honestly.
Yeah.
But they've been dealing with their own stuff as well, and that's kind of what's crazy about the entire NBA is what we're saying about the Sixers. Obviously they have the extra case of Ben Simmons, so that's all extra. That's stuff that other teams aren't dealing with. But the COVID, the injuries, everybody's dealing with it. I mean, you just saw what KD goes down with a knee injury. What are they going to do? We're obviously going to talk about that a little bit later. But overall, they're in a good spot with what they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
For what they have right now, they're probably in a great spot considering what is played out over this season. But it's worrisome in the long run, with the way all of these rumors, which now is probably a great time to get into those rumors, but with all the rumors circulating, and it seems like there's no resolution coming. One day we'll have, Sixers are getting closer. They've narrowed their list down from 30 to 25 players they've increased their list from 25 to 30 players they would accept for Ben Simmons. And then the next day you hear there has been no movement in a Ben Simmons trade. So it's hard to know what you believe. I just want to get to some of these comments before we move on to the segment. So Gent chimed in here. The team lacks effort. Your two vet leaders, Toby and Danny, getting questions in the media about trades. Joel is in such a bad spot right now. That's a great point. Is that affecting these guys mentally? Like you brought up earlier, Parcero, with Toby. Are these trade rumors affecting him? Because in that press conference when he was asked about them, he's like, please, I just don't even want to talk about it right now. I've gone through this the last 2 days. Like it's been hitting on me mentally heavily. So I think they are all dealing with some stuff. And then obviously the Ben stuff. But Joel, he is in a tough spot right now. I don't know if it's bad or good because we don't know what's going to happen yet.
Mm-hmm.
But as of right now, it is definitely a tough spot. So I will agree with that. Christopher, thanks for tuning in as well, again, as well as Christopher here. Thanks for chiming in. Simmons needs to be traded. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, brother. And then Phil, Sixers are stuck in no man's land at the moment. 100%. I think all of those things were probably spot on. The first thing I wanted to get into, there's once again a ton of rumors. But this was the one I wanted to get to first. The Detroit Pistons included Jeremy Grant in a huge offer for Ben Simmons. They packaged together Jeremy Grant, Sadiq Bey, Villanova's very own, Kelly Olynyk in a first-round pick. And that was not met with much enthusiasm by Philadelphia brass, meaning Morey said, hell no.
I'm sure Gant was excited to get Sadiq Bey, though.
He was. And he said that in the chat, which, to be transparent, Matt McGinty, obviously co-host of Faithful Fanatic, he's been very adamant about what he would and would not accept for Ben Simmons. And today this deal popped up and he said that he would accept it. So I take that. I actually appreciate that. I don't take that as him just saying that. I think he does believe that. And it is a decent package. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this package, actually, Parcero.
All right. So the tough part about this package is the fact that you still have Tobias Harris here, right? So that's a pretty good haul for Ben Simmons. I mean, we're talking about Ben Simmons here, but then like if you do this deal, like I really don't feel confident with Sadiq Bey here in this rotation here being the guy that we need. And then obviously with Kelly Olynyk and Jeremy Grant, look, to me, Jeremy Grant is best suited as that four, playing that stretch four, especially with Joel Embiid playing more of a smaller ball. But you have Tobias.
Yeah.
So it's a tough part.
What do you think's better right now, Jeremy Grant or Tobias?
I think Jeremy's better. I think that Jeremy, first off, the strides this guy's taken since being in Philadelphia is truly remarkable. I mean, just look at what the Nuggets are missing him. Like they flat out or have been missing Jeremy Grant, especially last season. So I would definitely take Grant. It's just Bey and Olynyk just kind of are like, and this is the other thing that we need to remember as well. Like, I don't want to get rid of too many pieces because chemistry is a big thing. This team does have chemistry right now.
Yeah.
The problem is, number one, the wing is lacking as far as scoring and defense. And of course, at the point guard position, as much as we all love Tyrese Maxey, what this team really needs is a guy who can shoot and facilitate as that point guy. And Tyrese is still a work in progress there. So I'm just not really feeling this trade. It's a nice haul because think about it. You do this move, it's just for Ben, right?
Yeah.
So like you're not really giving up too much. You still get to keep Tyrese. You still get to keep Matisse Thybulle.
Right.
But I just see like a logjam now with Kelly Olynyk, Jeremy Grant, and Tobias Harris. And I was talking about this with my girl's brother earlier about this trade, moving Tobias back to the 3. The thing is that Toby's a much better defender defending the 4.
100%.
And look at him right now. Right now, he's struggling to score. So now that kind of takes that out of the way as well. So I'm just not buying this. I'm not feeling this trade.
Yeah, I think you were spot on there. Like it comes down to the fit, and the return I think is pretty good. Sadiq Bey, I would have to look at his numbers. I think he's in the double digits scoring this year, above 30. He's about league average 3-point percentage as well. So it would help with that. Obviously I think he's a nice young player, but Kelly Olynyk, I think he would probably be a one and done, maybe even bought out if that went through. Although he could be interesting, right? Like, I don't know if he's digging into Drummond's how that would work or, anything like that. But overall, the logjam comes with Jeremy Grant and Tobias Harris, as you mentioned. And overall,
we still have George too. We still have George
you have
Niang.
George Niang, right? So it would create a logjam. Ultimately, I think if you could move Tobias in a separate deal, maybe I would, consider this. I just think with the current roster construction, probably is not the best deal to make. And the other side of this is, if these guys aren't what you really want, can you flip them? I don't know if you can, right? I don't know if you can, though. So that's what it comes down to for me. I just looked up Jeremy Grant's numbers this year. He's averaging 20 points per game, 41% from the field, 33% from three, about 5 rebounds, about 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block.
Team.
So, on a bad team, yeah. So usage is up. So I don't know. It's an interesting package. I'm more interested. So I know they quoted it there, was not met with much enthusiasm. So I'd like that to be elaborated, because like, what else would the Sixers want from the Pistons in order to make that deal go through? Like,
give us Cade.
Right. Right. No, I think, I would be interested to see what package they would like.
I'll be honest, Scott. I'll be honest. I don't even really care for Cade. Like, I think Cade is going to be a really nice player, but this is what we need to remember. Like, Joel's window, how long is that? Do we have enough time to wait? That's why, like, I'm so iffy on Tyrese, because I do think Tyrese can be a baller in this league, but do we have enough time to wait for that? That's kind of that's the dilemma we're running into right now.
Yeah, because like right now we're with Tyrese Maxey, we're betting on him developing just
quicker than he's
ridiculously quicker than he's supposed to, right? Which maybe we're a little hypnotized by like guys like Ben Simmons that took forever and didn't show growth over years, and Joel Embiid was the prize that came of, right? Like he has developed ridiculously. So it's hard to say. It's a rocky spot. Like everybody said in the comments, it's a tough spot to be in. But this deal is not moving the needle for me, to say the least. And I there's just other pieces that would fit better out there. I think we could agree on that. So the next topic, I guess, would be the Sacramento Kings, or the next team, I guess you could say, as far as rumors regarding Ben and even Tobias Harris. So just to start this conversation, I would imagine you would prefer a package from Sacramento over Detroit in this case.
Yeah. And it's honestly not by much, but I would prefer a deal with Sacramento. I just think that Sacramento can offer us a guard with some height, and a guy with some spacing, and that's where I would start. But it's not much better from what the Pistons are offering here.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about like a De'Aaron Fox, which to be as clear as day, like. I don't want De'Aaron Fox next to Tyrese Maxey. Like,
exactly.
I do not see that fit at all. And I don't know about, moving Tyrese to 6-man. Like, I just don't see it. I don't see what the point is. Like, you're bringing in somebody that does similar things. Exactly. Now, they could use a boost in athleticism. I will say that, like, overall athleticism as a team, but I would much rather lean towards Tyrese Halliburton and kind of what he is about, as far as being a 40% plus 3-point shooter, averaging close to, I believe it's like 7 assists per game, 14 points per game. So he's not like trying to score per se, but he is able to shoot if he needs to. So I think that's what what would be ideal. But then it's like, is that enough, right? Like a 14 points per game, 7 assists. I mean, that's what Ben Simmons averaged last season. So maybe it is, but I mean, obviously Ben Simmons is an incredible defender, but you're talking about Tyrese Halliburton, who's a 6'5" point guard, that can play off ball. He can play on ball. Tyrese can play off ball, whatever the case may be. I feel like they could coincide in a backcourt together is kind of what I'm getting at there.
It's an upgraded MCW, guys. It's an upgraded.
Don't you torment our listeners like that. So this is the deal I was talking about to you before the show. Now, don't get me wrong, El Parcer. I do not want this deal. I don't. And I see the positives, I see the negatives. I don't want this deal, but it was presented to me, and I want to give credit where it's due from Zach Noble from Ball His Life. He DM'd me this mock trade today and basically quoted it as, is this the minimal deal that you would accept? And so the positive here is Tobias and Ben Simmons contracts get moved. The negatives are you obviously don't get Halliburton or Fox, which I think would have to be in the deal for us to do it. Like one of them has to be in the deal because even with De'Aaron Fox, at least you can maybe flip him to somebody else next, in the whatever the case may be. But Gent says, boo this deal. I feel you. So the idea behind this, and this will kind of feed into the next segment regarding James Harden, you clear the cap space by moving both of these guys. You get the $30 million of Ben Simmons, and you get the $36 million of Tobias Harris off the books. Obviously, you get rid of that terrible Tobias contract that everybody loves to talk about. But what you bring in is Harrison Barnes, so he has 2 years left on his deal, which maybe you hold on to Harrison Barnes. But the deal that is bothering me in this trade is then the Buddy Hield deal. So it's like, how much salary are you really saving by doing this deal? You know what I mean? If you're getting that back in Buddy Hield, which, as Gin said in the chat today, is another terrible contract in reality.
Yeah, it really is, man. It really is. And then the drama king himself, Tristan Thompson, coming to Philadelphia.
I want no parts of that, bro.
Dude, he's at it again, man. This number one, this dude cannot keep it in his pants.
Yeah.
And number two, he finds himself in the middle of these Instagram dramas. Like, dude,
grow up, dog.
Seriously.
I feel you, man. That's like a whole other Get Tristan Thompson out of here.
Yeah, for real, man.
I feel that, bro.
These Philly fans are tear him apart.
I don't want no parts of Tristan Thompson. I would assume that he would maybe be bought out. Maybe that's what would be the ending part of that. Marvin Bagley, depending on how you would finish the season, I don't know. Maybe you would just let him walk in free agency, clear the books with him. But does this trade make the Sixers better? So basically, you're trading. Obviously Ben Simmons not playing this season. You're trading Tobias Harris for these guys. They're gonna play right now. And then obviously you wait it out to the offseason and try to go after one of the stars if they become available. But do you think that this makes the Sixers a better team? Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, and Marvin Bagley?
No, I definitely do not. Look, I mean, you got more of a logjam with the four. I mean, if you're getting Tobias Harris out of here, yeah. I mean, if you're getting Tobias Harris out of here, I mean, now you got Marvin Bagley and Georges Niang, like that. That's just flat out not gonna do for. And people forget. Buddy, now obviously Jaeger is still going through cancer, and obviously we're keeping him in our prayers. But Jaeger and Buddy did not get along in Sacramento.
Interesting. That's a great point.
And Hield actually got benched for Bogdanovich, who we now know is killing it with Atlanta, and that kind of rubbed Buddy the wrong way. And then obviously I think Jaeger got fired or resigned or whatever shortly after that. But Buddy, as much as I feel like Buddy would help, like, does this coaching staff actually believe in him to help this team? Like, that's definitely an issue. And that's another bad contract. I do actually like Harrison Barnes. I think
like him.
Yeah, I think he could be a great rotate. Whoa, you said you gave props to North Carolina guy.
I had to slip my mind, but I do like what he would bring to the team.
No, exactly.
I won't lie about that.
Yeah, man, he would provide some spacing, especially as a wing player. But no, I mean, we don't have a point guard in there that can create some depth behind Tyrese or with Tyrese. So yeah, this deal is definitely not going to do it for me.
What if you take? So I know part of this the giving is lessened because they're taking Tobias's contract. What if you replace like a Tristan or maybe it's Marvin Bagley you replace and Tristan still gets bought out with a Halliburton? Is that a deal that you would do at that point?
Yeah, I think
he's on a rookie contract.
Yeah, I would consider that. And also too, because of Halliburton's potential, like I think it's still there, and I think he can help you right now. And then you get some more spacing with Harrison Barnes and Buddy Hield. And I mean, we can just buy out Tristan Thompson at that point for sure.
Yeah, I want no parts of him to be as frank as possible.
no, definitely not. So I think at that point, then yeah, I mean, and then in the offseason you can figure out what you're going to do here, as far as getting yourself that star player. But I think
then maybe
Halliburton would move it a little bit for me.
because then maybe in the offseason you flip Buddy Hield to a team like the Lakers that obviously wanted him last offseason. You obviously would fit what they would want. Maybe you can flip Buddy Hield's contract to some other team in the offseason, whatever the case may be. But I'm with you. Overall, it's not moving the needle. And just to create clarity where this idea came from as far as moving Tobias and Ben to Sacramento, it was actually a report, an article that came out earlier today from Sam Amick of The Athletic, basically mentioning that the Kings are going in circles around the idea of bringing back Tobias and Ben Simmons. They're looking to make a big move, a big shake to the roster before the trade deadline. And right now their eyes are on Ben Simmons and Domantas Sabonis. So they're trying to figure out what they can do, what deal they got to make. And so they're going to make a deal. Most likely the Sacramento Kings will.
So you're telling me they're going to tank again? All right.
Yeah.
Imagine being a Kings fan. Like, imagine
what does a Ben Simmons and a Tobias Harris look like on the Kings with like De'Aaron Fox? If this trade, like I don't think if Daryl Morey wouldn't take that trade from Detroit, I guarantee he's not taking this. What does that team look like with those two on the roster?
I do think it'd be a better team, but like now you're talking about Ben and De'Aaron who both need the ball at their hand. So that would be a little bit of an issue for Sacramento, but I just find it incredible that this team, like year after year, still cannot figure it out. Like this is literally the Cleveland Browns or the New York Jets of the NBA. Like it's a mess. Fun. Kings fans are just closet Warriors fans. I like that.
I would be too if I was a King. Like, what the hell am I doing in Sacramento, man? But
you know what the wild part is these Kings fans on social media think like they are the Warriors. They're like, there's no way in hell we're taking on Ben Simmons. Like, who are you? Like, what are you talking about, dog? You haven't been to the playoffs since Ron Artest was on your team. What are you talking about?
Like, you should want some sign of life on that roster. Like, you need to shake something up. You've been doing the same thing the last few years.
At least it'd be fun watching Ben just, driving down the paint, man. Like, at least something. So they need to make a move they don't. Embiid, this is not a 9-win team. What do you mean? They're a 24-win. They are a 24-win team, sir.
If they didn't have Embiid, it's
if they didn't have. Oh, okay, I see.
So I get it. Maybe a little over exaggerated, but yeah, I feel you. That guy does everything.
I do think this would definitely be like a bottom. Like they would be top bottom three team in the Eastern Conference without Joel. Yeah. I do agree with that as well, man. We definitely need to get him some help. I will say this. Scotty, the one player for me that has been the top priority, and I haven't heard anything, has been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But the weird part is during the draft, there's all these rumblings that the Thunder were willing to trade the Pistons Shai Gilgeous for the number one pick. Obviously, OKC would get themselves Cade Cunningham. So, like, they obviously aren't completely sold on Shai Gilgeous for the future. And to me, dude, like we'll get to the Grizzlies and John Morant. I love me John Morant. That is like one of my favorite players. It's not a Sixer. And to me, like I see that same crap with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he's on a terrible team.
Yeah,
you match that kid up with Joel Embiid, I think right there, and I think his game is still evolving, but it's not that far off. Like I think he can do everything: facilitate, drive, play defense, shoot the three. And especially here in Philadelphia, you come to Philadelphia, your defense automatically gets better. Like even Seth Curry's a better defender than what he was in his career. So that to me is like the number one priority. Like that's who I would love the Sixers to get right now. But obviously, there's not even talks with OKC right now.
Yeah, and I don't understand why. I'm with you, and I'm with Chile here. We would love him. Yeah, I agree. He's everything that we're looking for. As far as length, a lengthy guard. I know I talked about a wing earlier, but he's the size of a wing at the guard position. So, you're not missing out on that. So he would add length, defense, athleticism, as I mentioned earlier, which that's something that I know you probably noticed it against the Hornets as well. They're just miles behind a youthful team like that as far as athleticism. But I think SGA covers all the boxes. Now, obviously, I love the idea of Jaylen Brown, which we'll talk about that a little bit later, just the Boston situation. But Yeah, SGA, Jaylen Brown would probably be at the top of my list. And I'll be completely honest with you. I've kind of moved away from the idea of Dame Lillard. Even I won't lie to you.
Yeah,
Just
that's
as
a weird
far
one
as
too.
just as far as what Portland would want for him, I don't know about stripping the team of everything after what I've seen and where I think the Sixers are right now. So it's an interesting thought. Where all of this this Kings news, this Kings reporting, all of these rumors stem from is the idea as far as why would the Sixers even want to do that, right? James Harden is open to relocating, fueling trade rumors heading into the trade deadline. The 76ers have shown interest. Duh. You know what I mean? Yeah, they probably have. I mean, they probably have been all season. I know Morey is in love with James Harden. What I wanted to ask you, El Parcero, do you think it's worth it to, whether you make that trade or not with Sacramento? Maybe you don't. Maybe you figure out another way to get it done this offseason. Maybe it's a sign and trade, whatever the case may be. Are you willing to wait past the trade deadline? Basically, throw the towel in on this season, on fool's gold, I would call it, as far as thinking that James Harden would come to Philly.
Here's the thing. I'm willing to wait. I just don't know if I wait for James Harden. Like, I get it. Like, we all know the potential of scorer that James Harden can be. And look, James Harden essentially made Daryl Morey's career. Like, if it wasn't for that trade with OKC,
Right.
I don't think Daryl Morey would even be in this position here today.
That's such a great point.
You know what I mean? Like, that was
Yeah.
such a great move. They fleeced Houston for James Harden, and it's worked out very well. The thing is that obviously injuries are now a concern with James Harden. And what has James Harden done in his career besides all the scoring accolades that he's received? Like, in the playoffs, that's really where I'm looking at. Now, look, you're putting him up with the best center in this modern day era, probably, with Joel Embiid, and that could be a big factor. But I mean, it's just, to me, like, it's too much of a risk. Like, even last year, I thought it was a little bit of a risk. Obviously, like, we probably would have done that now, trade away Ben Simmons for James Harden. But now we're a year after. We're a year. It's been a year since that those trade rumors have happened. He's had a lot more wear and tear on his body.
Yeah.
And to me, it's too much of a risk. The problem is I don't know what else you can go out and get. I mean, maybe Dame next offseason. I mean, Dame seems to, for whatever reason, just married with the fact that he wants to retire in Portland, which, hey, do what you got to do. But
yeah, do what you do.
Yeah, it's still weird to me. But I mean, I don't know. Trading for James, man, seems a little too risky for me right now.
Yeah, no, I get that side of it. And then also just the risky part of, maybe a deal pops up at the deadline. We don't know what deals have been discussed. Maybe a deal pops up at the deadline that you decline, thinking, oh, I'm going to go and try and get James Harden this offseason. I want the star. And James Harden just simply doesn't leave Brooklyn, or Brooklyn wins the NBA championship. Why would he leave? Like,
Exactly.
There's a lot of things that factor in there. There's a lot of uncertainty. And my number one point is, why the hell would James Harden want to leave Brooklyn? And if Brooklyn refuses to extend him, why did they make that decision? You know what I mean? So, like,
it's all good points.
There's so much that feeds into it that there's no way that I can just say, oh yeah, forget this season. Let's just wait until the off season. Like you said, I'm willing to do it for other, even if it was, a Dame Lillard, SGA, or even a Jaylen Brown. They finally decide after this season, I want to split these two up, something like that. But I don't know.
It's a tough sale, man. It's really a tough sale. To me, it's not a concrete plan to just kind of wait for a James Harden. Like, it's really just not.
It's like a Daryl Morey. Like, I'm very hopeful that this will happen. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly, man.
It just seems like fool's gold, and I just don't see any truth in it. Honestly, I don't see why he would request. I don't see why he would, one, put it out there that he's thinking about relocate. Like, what does that even mean? And
yeah, man.
I don't understand that at all.
When I look at a trade, like, to me, like, the blueprint is like Milwaukee, right? Like, how do we go get Drew Holiday? Like, how do we get like a Drew Holiday type of player? Like, to me, Drew has been a player that has been overlooked by a lot of people.
Yeah.
But we know what he does on the court, and it is really important, and it fit perfectly for what Milwaukee was doing. Because to me, I think Joel can play like what Giannis did last year. Like, I can totally see him taking over playoff games. but we need the other pieces around. And
Yeah.
that to me is like, how do we find the Drew? How do we find our Drew? That's the problem right now.
No, 100%. We got to find that like the second, it's the third piece with the second piece, right? Like we need to find that second piece to Joel, just so we can, get the most out of this team. So
this man, this here.
I can imagine, but it ain't worth it.
Oh man. Freaking Ben Simmons.
Oh man, it's a rough time in Philly, as far as that Ben Simmons situation. As Philly Irish mentioned here, which thanks for tuning in, Philly. I appreciate that.
Yeah, seriously, thank you, man.
Other problem with when trading Ben is depending on the team he goes to, we'll try not to report. I don't think Ben personally, I don't think he can afford to do that.
It's over for him.
His career, he can't afford to do that. Like I don't. Didn't choke under pressure. That was the plan. Yeah, man. Hey, spot on. That is exactly who Ben honestly should have been. You know what I mean? To be frankly clear, here, very transparent, but you're spot on there, Chile. Some other news aside from the Sixers, it is an NBA podcast here. And as I mentioned on the show earlier, Parcero Philly brought this to Scotty Talks NBA. He brought the idea of this Grizzlies team being this strong to this podcast. So I want to thank El Parcero for that inside tip to start the season, because now we get to reflect midway through. And what we're seeing here is the Memphis Grizzlies. They have climbed to the #1 spot in the latest power rankings on NBA.com. And some other notes that I have written down here regarding the Grizzlies. They're currently third in the West, so they're 31-15 on the season. And mind you, Ja Morant did miss some time this season as well. So they were
on a winning streak too during that, which is wild.
They did, and we know how much this guy does. Which I don't know. Did you see that 360 layup last night?
Yeah, yep. I saw the fight. Yep, it was.
I tried to get the video of it uploaded. It never streams through here the way I like, so I didn't bring it up and try to play it for our viewers. But definitely go to Twitter. Just type in Ja Morant. You'll see the 360 layup. Seems like every other game he's doing something crazy like that, jumping up to the top of the backboard to block shots and stuff. But
crazy, man.
Some other notes regarding the Grizzlies. They're the 4th best overall in the West as far as point differential. They are 9-1 in their last 10 games. And then just to point out how great Ja is, 24 points per game, around 6 rebounds per game, close to 7 assists per game, a steal per game, 48.7% from the field, 35.5% from the three, which the 35.5% from the three is the biggest thing, because that was his #1 knock coming out of college. Can't shoot or isn't willing to shoot. He relies on his athletic ability, his facilitating. That's not the case. This guy can shoot it. He has a teardrop. He has a lot of things in his arsenal. I want to get your thoughts on this Memphis Grizzlies team. And obviously, I've been sleeping on them. But what is your feel across the NBA spectrum of fans? Are NBA fans sleeping on this team in general? And then the last part of this question is, can this team compete for a championship this season?
I'm going to say, yeah. Yep. I think they could be. So when I looked at the Grizzlies, the reason why I said they were going to be the 4th place team in the West, I expected them to have kind of the Suns type of step that they had. Remember what the Suns did last year? I thought the Grizzlies could make the same thing. And it was just because I felt like these guys were going to have another year playing together and they were just going to continue growing. Like they showed spurts in that first round. See who they played in the first round that I'm blanking on right now. Regardless. I felt like those guys were going to take that next step. Obviously, Jaren Jackson.
They played
Utah. Yep, Utah. And they took game 1 without Ja Morant too.
They did. Yeah.
I thought Jaren Jackson would take a big step in his game, and a lot of people killed him because they gave him the contract extension before the season following a nasty injury he had last year. He's been playing spectacular. He's been under the radar as well. Dylan Brooks taking another step, but then they also have guys like Tristan Bain, who, my God, he's a great two-way type of player.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ja Morant, like he's taking that next step in his game, and it's truly remarkable seeing what he can do. You mentioned the whole shooting not coming out of college. He does it all. He literally does it all, and he's a he's a leader by example, and that's one of the
Yeah.
big reasons why I love watching this Memphis Grizzlies. And they always have like these fun. Remember the Tony Allen, Marcus
Yeah.
Saul days, Zebo. They played some nasty defense, upsetting the Spurs and whatnot. But this is another one of those fun teams. They drafted really well, and you're seeing what is happening with that. Man, I would love some of those, but man, I would love John Morant. That's why I want Shea Gillis, because I want a player like that. But it's just a lot of fun to watch them play.
Yeah, one of those, just generational type of guards, right? Like like Ben Simmons was supposed to be.
Yeah, man.
I'm with you.
Murray State's own.
Yeah, it's actually it's insane. But just regarding Ja, this Memphis team, I'm with you. Yeah, that's exactly what they are. And thank you for checking in here, Habib. I appreciate that.
Like the profile pic.
So Habib says, I hope the Sixers trade with the Kings. Well, we will certainly see. Grizzlies are a gritty team. Yeah, and that's something I notice specifically every time the Sixers play against that team, because they just simply out-hustle the Sixers every time. They outwork them, period. And it's almost like they intimidate the Sixers in a sense, which the only reason I speak like that is because the Sixers have really struggled with the Grizzlies over the last 2 seasons. But yeah, I'm with you. I think this Grizzlies team, they have a lot of different pieces. It's optimistic, I think, to think that they can actually, go out and like beat a Warriors team this season, but you never know. Like Ja Morant is that alpha, right? Like he's that leader. He's that guy that's not afraid of anyone. If he goes up against Steph, he looks at it as an opportunity, not a negative situation. It's an opportunity for him to show what he can do. So like, in those situations, it's hard to bet against Ja, right? Like,
yeah, man.
He is. I just wanted to give kudos to you today on, pointing that out and seeing it ahead. You know what I mean? Because this is a team that's very dangerous. And, at the very least, if they're not contending or in your top contenders, it's definitely a team that you don't want to see in the playoffs. And I think it's as simple as that. Jaren Jackson, you mentioned him, lengthy, power forward, just overwhelming athleticism in Jaren Jackson. And he can also spread the floor. And then Desmond Bane that you mentioned, on the Grizzlies. I just looked it up, and he's actually their 3rd leading scorer behind Ja and Dylan Brooks. So a monumental step up from Desmond Bane this season. Second-year player there. So they got some good things going. And, as far as them contending, if not this season, over the next few seasons, they're going to get ridiculous because they're only going to get better. They're only going to make more additions.
I will say they'll be a Final Four team in the West.
I like it. I
think they'll be a final. I don't know if they're ready for NBA Finals. I still think they need another star player over there. But I do think that they have enough talent to compete with the elites in the West.
I 100% agree with you. And I think that's a good place to leave it. The Grizzlies are number 1 on those power rankings for a reason. And they're really hot right now. Habib checks in. Sixers got the number 1 pick in the wrong years. Yeah. Not to say that because Ja Morant wasn't a number 1 pick. He was actually number 2 behind Zion. So, but in that case, you would have to imagine the Sixers probably, if they're drafting on fit, but you couldn't pass up Zion in that case. So it's hard to say what they would do. But it's funny he says that, just got the number 1 picks in the wrong seasons because they were the consensus 1 pick. In those respective draft classes.
And I think we look back at the process here, like we're all gonna, like, once it's all over, like we'll be like, oh, this is the reason why we didn't succeed, or this was the reason why we didn't succeed. But look, I think Sam Hinkie's vision and plan was what this team needed at the time. But I mean, when you're drafting or retrading for Nerlens Noel, drafting MCW, then you draft Joel, which obviously worked, but then you're drafting Ja, and then Ben, and then Markel. Like, you see, like, you're not hitting on those important picks. That's why you tanked, was to go hit on those picks. And unfortunately, you only got Joel and Ben Simmons out of those draft picks, and that's kind of been the issue as well, man. It's a crapshoot.
It's insane to look back on it, and I see Habib is actually just going down memory lane here. But
why are you doing this, Steve?
Yeah, don't do that to yourself, man. You revisit those type of scenarios, you'll go crazy. I'll tell you now. What I want to finish up here with El Parcera, I just want to take a trip around the NBA, talk about a few storylines that are circulating, a few highlights, I guess you could say. But last night, obviously, we're talking about Ja Morant. We're talking about the Memphis Grizzlies. They took on the Chicago Bulls, the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference right now, in a game last night. And, of course, our guy, Tony Bradley. And I don't know if we should say our guy, but Sixers Twitter's guy.
Build the franchise around Tony.
The franchise guy that was traded for George Hill last season. Got into a little scuffle with Ja Morant, gripped him up, and Steven Adams steps in and just manually carries this dude out of the picture. Like, you're not touching my jaw. Like, it was wild to watch.
Dude, Steven Adams' strength is something that's not talked about enough in this league. Like, I honestly did not think it, but you see some of the stuff he does. Man, it's got some seriously like natural strength. Was he? I think he's from like New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yeah, he's a Kiwi. Yeah, those Kiwi boys, man. They, especially the way he's built, he's definitely has like some sort of like I forget what the indigenous tribe is from down there, but dude, he's got that like strength, and it's absolutely wild. But for Tony Bradley, I mean, what the heck, Tony? Like, you're trying to go at it with Ja and that team? Like,
that's not the one.
no, that's not the one. That's not the one you want to get into. But no, I mean, you know, I'll say, Sky, like, kudos to Tony, and Doc's talked about him. Like, Tony was one of those guys that came in willing to work and to learn. And you learned from Doc, you learned from Joel. I mean, I don't know what would be better, and Dwight as well. Learned a little bit from Dwight Howard too. So. Kudos to him. He's gonna make himself a little bit of a career here in the NBA when a lot thought he would be out of the league by now. So kudos to Tony.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. You know, Tony's actually, you know, created a space, a role for himself in the NBA based on what he was able to do last season. So definitely kudos to him. The next thing up in line is definitely the Russell Westbrook slam over Rudy Gobert. Have to shout out Russell Westbrook. I'm not a huge Russ fan. But anytime anybody bodies Rudy Gobert for me, I love it. I'm not a Rudy Gobert fan by any means at all. But he definitely put Rudy Gobert in a body bag last night. So the question I want to ask you is: the Russell Westbrook criticism fair?
It's tough, right? It's just his style just doesn't fit in this day and age of NBA basketball. Like, he would have been great in the 2000s. I feel like he would have been perfect. It's just unfortunate. Like, I don't think he shoots the ball well enough. I don't think he creates enough for others either. I mean, you saw what happened last year with the Wizards. You saw especially when he's got to play with a guard that needs the ball a lot. Like, he doesn't know how to play like that. He's an athletic guy who likes to drive to the paint, and it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. But yeah, in an era where efficiency is so focused on, he's not going to be very favored. Yeah, it's good for. I like a B here. Thanks for tuning in today.
Yeah, some great comments here.
Westbrook is good for NBA 2K. That's facts.
Nah, I need NBA like 2K15, man. I'm not
2K15. Turn the fatigue off. Let's see what happens.
Russell Westbrook, man. Good times, man.
The next thing I wanted to ask you, I mentioned the KD injury earlier. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. I believe it's a knee injury, a MCL sprain, something of that nature. How do you think that affects their standings in the Eastern Conference? Do you think they drop, or what do you think about that Nets team without KD?
All right, before I put on my Sixers hat, I have to put on my Union hat. I hope my owner's fine. You know, we don't want to see him hurt. But back to my Sixers hat. It's definitely going to affect them. I mean, you remember when they were out with James Harden? Obviously, they have Kyrie.
Right.
Halfway,
part-time.
He's a part-time player over there. I definitely think it's going to affect him. KD is the glue guy there. He is the leader. He's the main clog there. He brings everyone together when we need that. He's the closer for them essentially. So I definitely think they're going to take a step back, especially if Milwaukee catch some fire. Miami gets their guys back and healthy. They got Jimmy back. Bam's still out. They should be getting healthy as well. But it's going to be interesting. Chicago, surprisingly, number 1 seed. I don't know how long that'll last. That's fine. They could take the number 1 seed, but
they're tied right now. So Miami is tied with them.
Okay, so Miami moved up.
Technically, but technically Chicago is the number 1 seed though as well.
Yeah, it's still early, but yeah, I do think that Brooklyn will be affected by this injury.
Yeah, no, 100%. And they got to be really careful, I would say, as far as what they do. Obviously, all you got to do when your star is out and it's just for a segmented time like that, just survive, stay afloat, beat the teams that you're supposed to beat during that stretch. And we've seen the Sixers be able to do that sometimes without it being, but most of the time not. But it's harder than what it sounds, right? But
yes, sir.
yeah, they're a half game up on Cleveland right now. Brooklyn's in the 3rd seed at 27-16, and I already talked to you about how close the East is jumbled up there. So they're two losses from dropping down to like a.
Yo, this time next week the Cavs can be in first place.
It could be. We have no clue, especially with this COVID bug. So you never know what the hell is going to happen. And then my final thing to you tonight, El Parcero. Just as far as where the Boston Celtics are right now, let me check and see. Boston's 10th seed right now. They're 23-22, so just above 500. Do you wait until the end of the season for them to fail out and then try to move one of those guys? Do you move one of those two at all?
I think for Boston, you mean that's what?
Like if you're a Boston fan, what would you say?
Ooh, I would not want to be a Boston. No, I'm just kidding. But
I feel you.
But I think for Boston, you have to start looking at any type of trade proposal for one of these guys. Like, how many times are you going to run this back? Like, and as a Celtics fan, you have to be kind of fatigued with running the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown show, and it just results in a first round goodbye. I don't think these guys can play together, which is interesting because you heard Joel talk about it. Every time he played Boston ISO ball, these guys don't really play as a team. And, when you're talking about basketball, I think Ali Abdenabi put it out the best way this past week. Like, when you have a team playing together, have chemistry like a team, you have a better shot of moving forward in the playoffs than a team who has the individual star-studded talent. And right now, Boston has individual star-studded talent, but they do not have the team play. And that's the issue right now.
Yeah, and I thought, it was very telling, the other night when Philly took on Boston. And obviously, Philly doesn't have several of their guys right now. Matisse got injured in that game. They looked kind of lost without Marcus Smart, right? Like that's their glue guy. And even with him, they're not that good, but he is their glue guy if they have one. And they look completely lost. They look unenergetic without him. So it was pretty interesting to see what they look like without Marcus Smart. But I agree. They're two players that do a lot of the similar things, right? Like it's like having Tobias and a Jeremy Grant on the same team. Once again, what you're kind of talking about there is two guys that operate in the mid-range that can sometimes shoot the three. It's similar, obviously, but on a different scale, I would say. So, yeah, I think they got to do something. I don't know if it's during the season maybe, but definitely in the off season.
I think Ben Simmons will fit perfectly in Boston.
I'm telling you.
Ben and Jason sounds better than Jaylen and Jason.
It honestly, and like all jokes aside, it does. Like, obviously he would be revisiting Al Horford and company, but who knows? Maybe that's Ben Simmons' guy at this point.
It's light skin Boston, maybe.
Right. Maybe they just they hate Philly together up there. But yeah, no, Jaylen Brown, he's a prize piece. But the last thing that I wanted to mention, not really anything to discuss, rather, but just the trade of Cam Reddish to the New York Knicks. I thought that was a great move by the Knicks. A lot of people are saying the Hawks won that trade, which I get it. They save a lot of money by not having to re-sign Cam Reddish. But ultimately, that talent that you add to the Knicks there, the only concern with the Knicks is that don't they already have a couple players that kind of play in the same area or the same style? But nonetheless, I think Cam Reddish is a stud, and I think with more playing time and comfortability, I would say he can really show a lot more than what he's shown in the NBA so far. Plus, you pair him up with his guy from Duke, RJ Barrett, and that's what I love to see. So now, obviously, I'd rather it not happen in New York, but if we can get that Duke trifecta of Zion, RJ, and Cam Reddish, let's get it rocking. But not in New York. I can't do the Knicks with like that. But I would love to see them all playing together again. But that is really all I got from last night around the NBA. Obviously, the Sixers lost, so that was that. But tonight, there's not much more on the plate. We got some dismal games here. Minnesota versus New York Knicks at 7:30, and then the Detroit Pistons versus the Golden State Warriors. Habib says we should have traded for Cam Reddish. What does it take from Philly to get Cam Reddish? It depends. If it's just like a first-round pick and a player like Kevin Knox, like, yeah, I kind of agree with that, honestly. He would have helped at least. But, yeah, definitely.
I wouldn't, because here's the thing. Does Cam put you over the edge?
No.
And the thing is that, Daryl's thinking big picture. We need all the assets possible to go out and get that star-studded player that we all envisioned playing alongside Joel Embiid. So if you really feel like bringing in Cam into this team and getting rid of maybe Shake helps your chances, like I just don't. Like, I think like you're maybe like a tad bit better. But like Cam is a solid player, and he looked good last time Atlanta was in Philly.
Yeah.
But he's got injury concerns. Like
he does. That's fair.
He's like one bad injury away from being out for the year again, and that's kind of the scary part. So I'm willing to kind of keep my assets and see if we can go get ourselves a better player, man.
I feel that, in the first round pick regarding, just draft compensation in general, you do have to hold on to that to an extent, because guys trading away stars are always looking for future assets, and that's a huge part of it. So that's a great point. But Habib, first time viewer, man, it's the first time I've seen you in the comments. Definitely check us out every Tuesday around 6 p.m. We will be here right on DSM Media. At least I will be. This is my show, Scotty Talks NBA. But you can find Parcero. I think this is a good time, El Parcero, for you to let my listeners, my viewers, know where they can find you, when they can find you throughout the week, my man.
Yeah, man. No, first off, thanks for having me on again. It's always fun chopping it up with the NBA with Scotty. But now for me, you guys can find me after tomorrow's game. We do recaps after every single Philly sporting event. Right now, we're currently watching the Flyers in the middle of the first period, so we'll have that recap out tonight. But anytime there's a recap on DSM Media, I will be there to kind of break it down for you. We talk about the games, have a lot of fun, kind of what we're doing here, comments, questions, and concerns. So definitely you can check me out here on DSM Media. I'm on YouTube at Parcero Philly, Twitter, Parcero Philly, Instagram. You can find me under L_Parcero_Philly. It's more of my personal account. We have like a news, story breakdowns on Instagram as well. You can find that under Oy and Philly Sports. And then the TikToks, man, we're always active on TikToks. You can find under El Parcero Philly as well. But I'm just staying busy. That's all it is. Keep you guys covered with all 5 Philly sports here at all times, every day, man.
There we go. And as you can see there, Habib, if you are not following El Parcero, make sure you go and give him a follow right now. Subscribe to his channel as well. Because as he mentioned, he covers all of the Philly sports. It's important to make sure that we include all 5 these days. I've been looking at this banner in my background, El Parcero, and I do think I may have to change it. Obviously I don't know if I'm going to be able to find something that's split into 5s, but I got a
small union right in the middle. We'll just
I need to change it. I got to rep the union and even our Lax brothers, over at the Wings. So
we gotta go. I'm not kidding. I had so much fun
at
a Wings game. It was really entertaining. The sport is so underrated. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot going on. I kind of cringe when I see that ball just get darted at a goalie. Like, that shit looks like it hurts. But obviously, Scotty grew up most of his life in Maryland. Maryland is a huge lacrosse team.
Yes.
Shouts out our Wings, baby.
Yes. Yeah. Lacrosse is humongous in Maryland. Some say it is Maryland's sport. Like, that's their sport of choice.
Crabs and lacrosse, baby.
Crabs and lacrosse. What a combo, man. But no, I definitely want to get out to a game with you. I know Devin Caney, she's a huge supporter of the Wings there. So we definitely will have to get out to her.
She covers the NLL for ESPN. Yeah. She kills it.
She's absolutely kills it. Awesome. Shout out to Devin Caney. Hey, if you ever want to come on DSM, we'd love to.
I'm sure she loved it, man. I'm sure she loved it.
I'm sure as well. But Habib, definitely catch us all throughout the week here on DSM Media. Hit that subscribe button. For everybody else out there that tuned in, thank you so much. Please, if you're going to listen to this tomorrow, I hope you enjoy. And for myself, for El Parcero Philly, make sure you are following. I messed up my words there, Parcero. Make sure you're following El Parcero Philly at Parcero Philly on Twitter. And make sure you're following myself at Scotty Drowned. And then finally, make sure you're following DSM Media at DSM_media. I am sorry for messing up that outro. I do that way too often, but we will keep improving here at DSM Media.
That's all you can do.
That's all we can do, baby. For myself, for El Parcero Philly, for DSM Media, I wish you all a very good